Kinetic Dawn, The Unseen Thread. Part 1. The Underestimated Prodigy. Chapter 1. The Unseen Thread. The Air in the Crucible. The primary combat arena of Citadel Academy wasn't merely hot, it was charged. Every atom vibrated with the raw, volatile power of the teenagers training for a war that had spanned generations. In the year 3000 AD, in the fortified country of Floridia, power meant survival, and failure meant a swift, brutal descent into poverty. Citadel Academy classified kinetic signatures, KS, into 4 tiers: Foundation, Intermediate, High, and Superior-only students with superior powers, rare, complex, and high-potential abilities, were truly guaranteed a life free from factory work or the slums. Cale Vance possessed a superior KS, invisible metal filament. It was a phenomenal power, allowing him to extrude micron-thin, diamond-hard threads from his fingertips, capable of anchoring, binding, or channeling kinetic force. But it lacked the visual flash the Academy prized. It made him look deceptively weak, earning him the silent label of invisible. He was level 32, which was respectable but still far from the top 10 students who were pushing level 45. Cale was a superior, but he was overlooked. His opponent in the Crucible was Flash, a high-level student specializing in localized electricity. Flash had the flashy, visually dominating power that students loved. "Superior Vance," Flash sneered, sparks already dancing across his knuckles. "I heard your invisible yarn couldn't even bind a coffee cup. Let's see you bind this." Flash lunged, releasing a focused blast of shock energy. Cale didn't try to dodge the energy. He anchored his filament, a barely perceptible thread, to a single floor rivet 10 feet away. Using the thread as a tightrope, he transferred his weight with impossible speed, letting the energy blast past beneath his feet. He landed behind Flash. Before Flash could turn, Cale shot 3 threads. One lashed around Flash's power wrist, the second anchored to the floor, and the third connected to the first thread, forming a high-tension triangle. Flash tried to channel his power, but the high-tension filaments, acting as kinetic insulators, briefly short-circuited his flow. He roared in frustration. "Binding complete," Cale said, his voice quiet. He hadn't broken Flash's skin, but he had thoroughly defeated the kinetic flow. The Crucible floor went silent. Cale had defeated a student whose power was visually 10 times more impressive, using only geometry and control. A slow clap started from the observation deck. It came from Jet Aura Valor, the number 3 student in the Academy. Jet's superior KS, Aura Flight, was legendary. He moved not by conventional force, but by surrounding himself with a shimmering blue kinetic field that defied gravity. He radiated pure, arrogant confidence, a stark contrast to Cale's humility. Jet descended, his feet barely touching the ground. He wore a sneer that perfectly encapsulated the Academy's hierarchy. "Nice parlor trick, Vance," Jet said, effortlessly snapping Cale's filament with a careless swipe of his energized hand. "It takes a week to wrap a gift, but a second to open it. Your power is based on setup. Mine is based on superiority." Jet didn't wait for a response. He flew off, leaving a faint blue kinetic wash in his wake. Cale watched him go, feeling the familiar burn of being dismissed. He knew his power was complex, and he knew he was more than a binding specialist. Every other superior student, like Jet with his obvious strength, had reached their peak. But Cale felt a deep, burgeoning kinetic power within him, a hidden reserve tied to his strategic mind. "My growth isn't linear," Cale thought, gripping his hands. "It's accelerating." He was a prodigy destined to gain sub-powers of charm, influence, and tactical intelligence. His superior KS was a reflection of his strategic mind, making his kinetic growth rate double that of everyone else. Jet didn't see the danger in Cale, but he would. Soon Cale Vance, the overlooked superior, would be impossible to ignore. Chapter 2. The hallway tax, the year 3000 AD, was a blur of chrome and kinetic energy. Citadel Academy, located deep in the fortified heart of Floridia, pulsed with the power of its superior students. The threat of the Californian Confederacy and the Texas sovereignty made the military presence from the Floridian Defense Force, FDS, heavy. But here, in the wide, gleaming hallways, the only currency that mattered was raw kinetic signature, KS, power. Cale Vance was walking with his cohort after the Crucible session. They made an uneven group, perfectly reflecting the social strata of the academy. First was Blaze, the high-level friend. Blaze's KS was pure fire manipulation, a potent elemental signature that branched into devastating skills like Blaze Whip and Inferno Shell. He was top 50, flashy, and prone to impulse. Second was Gale, the intermediate level friend. Gale's KS was wind control, allowing her to generate precise high-speed currents. Her current focus was on her sub-power, aerodynamic perception, which let her map the battlefield using air resistance. Last was Shade, the weak level student. Shade's KS, a simple form of invisibility, was unreliable. It flickered constantly and could be shattered by a loud sound. He was often the target of bigger, intermediate-tier bullies. Flash will be gunning for you, Cale, Blaze said, adjusting the specialized, heat-resistant glove that enhanced his fire abilities. You made him look like a foundation tier. You need to join the top 50 club soon. Cale shrugged, adjusting his shoulder rig. It carried small, weighted metal shards he used to practice anchoring his invisible threads. I don't need a ranking to know my filament works. It's a superior tier signature. It just doesn't shout like Aura Flight. As if summoned, Jet, Aura Valor, and his crew, a trio of high-ranked students, strode past, their custom uniforms crisp and clean. Jet didn't even glance at Cale, radiating a dismissive confidence that was more cutting than any insult. They rounded a corner and the conversation stopped dead. Blocking the traffic flow was a massive muscle named Titan, an intermediate-tier student specializing in density manipulation. His sub-power kinetic anchor allowed him to increase his body density to near impenetrable levels, making him slow but devastating. With Titan was Snake, a swift, intermediate-tier grappler, whose elasticity KS allowed him to stretch his limbs and bind targets. Titan had Shade cornered against a locker. Hallway tax, Reyes, Titan rumbled, his voice low and heavy, already activating his KS, his skin gaining the dull, unyielding sheen of packed granite. For daring to exist in the same airspace as a superior level student's associate, hand over your weak supply of energy gels. Shade was shaking, his invisibility flickering like a faulty bulb. He was effectively weak and helpless against the physical power of Titan and the binding of Snake. Blaze instantly tensed. Hey, Titan, back off, Shade! But Cale put a steady hand on Blaze's chest. It's all right, Blaze. Cale stepped forward, pushing aside his high-level and intermediate friends. He walked right up to Titan's dense chest, forcing the bully to look down at him. You're a top 100 student, Titan, Cale said, his voice quiet, calm, and carrying an uncanny, unnerving smoothness. He hadn't meant to use his power yet, but as he spoke, he felt a strange, magnetic clarity settle around his words. This wasn't combat. This was the subconscious emergence of his prodigy subpower. Rational charm. You know the rules. Preying on foundation or weak tiers is a Class B infraction that brings the FDF recruiters in early, Cale continued. And right now, you're about to face an academy-ranked, superior tier signature for 3 packets of synthetic protein. Titan actually hesitated. Cale's words hadn't been an aggressive challenge, but a cold, logical assessment of the risk/reward. The rational charm sub-power, part of his prodigy development, had hit Titan's primal Mindy's this worth the paperwork? Snake, however, wasn't so easily swayed. His arm, elongated and rubbery, shot out towards Cale's face. Before the stretched hand could connect, Cale's filament flared. It wasn't an attack. 2 invisible threads, fine as micron wire, shot out and anchored, not to Snake, but to the 2 small buckles on Titan's customized boots. With a barely perceptible tug, Cale transferred the kinetic force of Titan's own dense weight into the thread. The effect was immediate. The buckles snapped cleanly, and Titan's boots loosened, causing the density manipulator to shift his weight slightly, ruining his rooted kinetic anchor Titan, now unbalanced and momentarily vulnerable. roared in surprise. "Walk away, Titan," Kale said, his voice returning to normal, the charm receding. "Or I start tightening the thread around parts that don't bend." Titan looked at his broken buckles, then at the quiet intensity in Kale's eyes, and finally at the sudden crowd of students that had formed, many of them weak-tier, all looking at Kale with dawning respect. Titan spat on the ground and lumbered away, Snake quickly retracting his arm and slithering behind him. Shade materialized fully, his body trembling, and gave Kale a grateful, watery stare. "That was terrifying," Gale admitted, genuinely impressed. "You didn't even draw a blade. You just spoke to his brain." "That was the prodigy talking, Kale," Blaze said, clapping him hard on the shoulder. "That's why your kinetic growth rate feels double everyone else's. You're adapting your superior KS faster than Jet can fly." Kale felt the warmth of the sudden attention. He smiled genuinely, helping Shade pick up his dropped books. For the first time, he felt not just powerful, but useful. He was Kale Vance, the overlooked superior, becoming the people's favorite. He was the budding prodigy. Meanwhile, high on a walkway overlooking the scene, Jet Aura Valor watched Kale's small victory. His usual air of boredom was gone, replaced by a flicker of annoyance and a calculated glint in his blue eyes. Vance is evolving faster than calculated. He's starting to influence the weak. The war outside Floridia might have been the main concern of the FDF, but Jet knew his real war was brewing right here in the Citadel. Chapter 3. K-Corps in the Draft. The K-Corps Combat Gym wasn't a place for fitness. It was a brutal, multi-tiered facility built for warfare. The floor was padded kinetic foam, and the walls were lined with racks of basic combat gear. Weighted training staffs, dulled practice knives, and simple, power-dampening armor shells. The Citadel's philosophy was clear. In the year 3000, guns were obsolete. The human body, backed by a potent kinetic signature, shield KS, and augmented by specialized gear, was the ultimate weapon. Survival in the ongoing conflicts with the Californian Confederacy or the Industrial Atlantic Dominion hinged on personal power. Every student knew the truth: perform or perish. If a student was deemed too weak, they were removed, their family losing the only guaranteed path to security, the FDF, Floridian Defense Force draft. The academy was the bridge between crippling poverty and guaranteed survival. Today was mandatory KS integration drills. Kale Vance, Blaze, Gale, and Shade were standing with their class, watching an FDF lieutenant, a stern woman with a gleaming, power-enhancing shoulder plate, address them. "This academy is the primary recruitment pool for the FDF," the lieutenant announced, her voice echoing over the gym's loudspeakers. "The top 50 students will be drafted with command structure guarantees. The rest of you fight for a spot. Fail to demonstrate growth, fail to show competency, and you fail your lineage. You will be sent back to the Foundation tier sectors, where your KS is useless. Grow strong and feed your family." The threat was real, and the students were ravenous for strength. Kale felt the familiar ache in his gut, not of hunger but of responsibility. His family was depending on that draft. For this drill, students were paired into teams of 2. Kale found himself paired with Shade, the weakest of his friends. Their opponents were instantly apparent. Boom, an intermediate tier student with localized explosion manipulation, and Gator, a bulky martial arts specialist who used specialized reinforced knuckles and basic water skin defense. "This is bad, Kale," Shade whispered, his body already beginning to shimmer nervously, his invisibility failing. "Boom and Gator hate me." "Then let's give them something else to look at," Kale replied calmly, grabbing a basic 6-foot staff from the rack. His prodigy sub-power, rational charm, was already beginning to activate, steadying Shade's fluttering fear into a tense alertness. It wasn't manipulation, it was subtle, kinetic guidance for the mind. "Remember your basics, Shade. You fade before the attack," Kale instructed. "I'll handle the approach." Blaze and Gale were positioned across the K-Corps, watching with concern. "Start!" the lieutenant commanded. Boom started with a flashy yet predictable move. He slammed his fist into the ground. detonating a localized, non-lethal sonic boom meant to disorient. Kale used his filament immediately. An invisible thread shot from the tip of his staff, anchored to the ceiling beam directly behind Gator. He then used the staff as a fulcrum, spinning it with superhuman speed to deflect the main wave of the sonic blast, while simultaneously propelling Shade past the blast zone and into a forward roll. Gator and Boom looked momentarily confused. Kale had moved Shade faster than their eyes could track. "Strike!" Kale yelled, and Shade, seizing the moment of focus provided by Kale's rational charm, managed to achieve a moment of perfect stable invisibility. He disappeared. Kale faced Boom directly. Boom, realizing the subtlety of Kale's power, decided on brute force. He lunged, his entire body glowing with potential energy for a focused blast punch. Kale didn't try to outmuscle him. This was the result of his double growth rate. He'd absorbed a week's worth of advanced kinetic theory in 2 days. He saw not a punch, but a line of kinetic transfer. As Boom closed the distance, Kale extended 2 filament threads, one wrapped around Boom's ankle, the other attached to his staff. The thread attached to the staff was not taut, but slack, creating a kinetic energy loop. As Boom threw his punch, Kale yanked the ankle thread, disrupting the flow of Boom's body weight and causing his power to sputter. At the same instant, Kale snapped the staff thread taut. The kinetic energy was amplified, propelling Kale's staff forward in a lightning-fast thrust that slammed into Boom's armored chest plate. The impact wasn't powerful enough to knock Boom out, but it was perfectly timed. Boom staggered back, disoriented by the abrupt stop of his kinetic momentum. "Gator, where's Shade?" Boom yelled. Gator, relying on the audible slosh of his waterskin defense, couldn't find Shade. He was getting desperate and drawing his reinforced knuckles. "He's behind you, Gator." "Back left, slightly low," Kale said, his voice carrying the smooth, undeniable authority of the prodigy's charm. Gator, against his better judgment, spun around to the exact spot Kale had indicated. "Wait, Vance is baiting me," Gator realized, but it was too late. Shade materialized right where Gator's attention wasn't, high and to the right, and delivered a textbook-perfect basic defense strike with a practice knife to Gator's helmet sensor array. "Time!" the lieutenant roared. "Vance, Reyes, win!" Kale lowered his staff, breathing hard. The combined use of his filaments, precise kinetic control, and the subtle mind control of his rational charm had worked flawlessly. He had neutralized the physical threat and turned his weak-level friend into a functional asset. Shade materialized, shaking, but with a grin that stretched ear to ear. He hadn't been kicked out. He had won. As the other students cleared the arena, staring at the unassuming Kale Vance, Jet Aura Valor, who had been observing from the viewing gallery, stepped forward. He still wore his arrogant half-smile, but his blue eyes were calculating, recognizing the speed of Kale's growth. The power system was evolving, and Kale was no longer just the quiet guy with the rope swing power. He was becoming something far more dangerous, a leader. Chapter 4. The Unsanctioned Duel. The Citadel Academy sat at the edge of the Floridian Wild Zone, a steaming, power-saturated jungle where chaos-infused animals roamed. This proximity was deliberate. The only way to rapidly ascend the level system, max 100, was to kill those beasts. Students, usually hovering around level 30 in their senior year, lived for the thrill of the hunt. Each successful kill granted experience, and with enough of the rare high-level beasts, a student could even snag a bonus trait or a coveted title. Kale Vance, thanks to his prodigy title granting him a double growth rate, was already pushing level 35. He was currently studying a restricted FDF map, planning a hunt into the Wild Zone. "We need level 40 by the end of the year," Blaze muttered, running a diagnostic on his custom flame accelerator armor piece. "Otherwise, the FDF looks at the top 50, and we get shuffled to fire, or worse, police." "Police isn't bad," Gail said, her wind control KS making the papers on the table flutter gently. "It's steady pay, better than factory cleanup." "Police is safe," Blaze countered with disdain. "Safe is poor. FDF command structure is the only way to keep our families fed and out of the Sector 7 slums." Shade, level 28, simply nodded, his anxiety a constant companion. Suddenly, the common room door slammed open. It wasn't the sound of entry, but of impact. Jet, Aura Valor. The number 3 student stood framed in the doorway, his eyes fixed on Blaze. Beside him were his 2 closest allies. Eagle, a swift, intermediate tier student with enhanced eyesight and a throwing knife subskill, and Hulkwreck, a terrifying sight whose density manipulation was focused entirely on musculature, granting him massive destructive strength. Jet wasn't flying, but his blue aura flight KS was subtly active, making him look brighter than anyone else in the room. "Blaze," Jet said, his voice smooth and condescending. "I heard you've been talking about the top 50 club. You should focus on keeping your heat low, high level. It's distracting your friend Vance." Blaze, ever valid Antal, immediately flared his hands, a burst of red fire momentarily igniting. "Jet, this is outside the K-Corps. You want a piece of me? Go sign the waiver." "Waivers are for bureaucracy, not growth," Jet said, a predatory smile stretching his face. "This is an unsanctioned duel. The Citadel encourages spontaneous power escalation, even if it happens outside the chalk lines. And I don't want you. I want to see what happens when the little filament spider has to protect his loudest anger." Eagle instantly tossed a small, high-density metal sphere at Blaze. Blaze reacted with a burst of fire shell vaporizing the projectile, but the blast caused a flash and a roar that broke the room's peace. Kale stepped forward. He understood the game. Jet wasn't going to fight Kale directly, but force Kale to use his protective nature, revealing more of his unique strategy and growing power. "Eagle, Hulkwreck, the challenge is accepted," Kale said, his voice dropping to that unnervingly calm tone. "The activation of his prodigy subpower, rational charm, but not against Blaze, against me, 2-on-1. Jet gave a cold laugh. "Vance, you're level 35. You're asking for a beatdown." "A beatdown is temporary," Kale countered, walking into the center of the common room. "Failing to grow is permanent." Eagle, eager to prove his superiority, moved first. He was fast, closing the gap with a high-speed dash, drawing a specialized combat knife enhanced with kinetic stabilizers. Kale met the attack with his filament invisible threads shot out, not to bind Eagle, but to create kinetically charged tripwires on the floor, calculated to shift Eagle's weight by a few millimeters at key points. Eagle stumbled barely a step, but it was enough. As Eagle recovered, Kale, already moving at high speed, shot 3 threads at a nearby pillar, propelling himself vertically, transforming his momentum into a devastating overhead arc. Hulkwreck, now Jet commanded. Hulkwreck, radiating immense compressed physical power, roared and intercepted Kale midair. His muscle density was so high he was functionally a tank. A direct hit would pulverize Kale. Kale saw the massive forearms swinging toward him. He had 2 choices: retreat or gamble everything on his double growth that had been quietly maturing his kinetic focus. He gambled. He shot a single triple-braided filament at the elbow joint of Hulkwreck's swinging arm. Kale then used his rational charm subpower, not on Hulkwreck's mind, but on his own, to achieve a moment of supreme, logical clarity. Level up! Kale Vance has reached level 36. Kinetic signature growth enhanced. Bonus trait unlocked. Kinetic focus. Activation of rational charm grants a 15% increase in filament precision and kinetic transfer efficiency. The moment the kinetic focus trait activated, the single thread bit deep. Kale didn't try to stop the arm, he merely sought to deflect its kinetic path by a single crucial degree. The punch, meant for Kale's head, clipped his shoulder pad instead, sending Kale spinning but not crippling him. As Kale dropped to the floor, he pulled the thread taut, using the massive momentum of Hulkwreck's failed punch to slingshot the giant forward, directly into the path of the recovering Eagle. Crash. The 2 superior tier allies collided in a mess of knives and dense muscle, effectively neutralizing them. Kale stood up, wiping blood from his lip, his staff still untouched. He had won the 2-on-1 without an actual weapon. Jet's composure cracked. His blue aura flared with genuine rage, not condescension. "You cheated, Vance. That level of precision isn't possible for a level 35. "My power is superior, Jet," Kale replied, the rational charm still faintly active, giving his words an almost hypnotic weight. You just spent so long looking down, you missed the growth. Now the duel is finished. Jet stared, calculating the cost of fighting Kale in front of the swelling crowd of students who were now cheering for the filament prodigy. With a snarl, Jet helped his allies up and flew them out of the room, his aura leaving a contemptuous blue streak behind. Kale had won the day, secured his friends, and, more importantly, gained his first crucial bonus trait. His path to the prodigy title is clear. Use his unparalleled growth rate to evolve beyond raw power and into tactical supremacy. Chapter 5. The Vapor Beast in the Keen Sense. The Floridian Wild Zone was a crucible of kinetic energy. The jungle wasn't just hot and humid. It was saturated with the KS signatures of the beast that roamed it, a constant, low-level thrum that frayed the nerves. Today, Cale Vance, level 36, and his team were deep inside, hunting the elusive Vapor Beast. This was an officially sanctioned FDF recruitment test. The lieutenant had been clear. A successful kill of a level 50-plus beast meant an instant boost to the team leader's, Cale's, draft ranking. Failure meant a permanent stain on their records, and death was a distinct possibility. This is its territory, Gale, level 38, whispered, her Wind KS passively active, sifting the air for scent and thermal changes. I'm reading high-density steam pockets ahead. It's level 52. Blaze, level 42, adjusted the nozzle on his flame accelerator rig, his excitement overcoming his usual fear. 52, that's enough XP to push Kale to level 38 instantly. Get ready, Shade. Shade, level 28, simply nodded tightly, his invisibility flickering like heat haze. He was acutely aware that a sudden appearance could mean a gruesome end, and a gruesome end meant his family got nothing. Kale ignored the static anxiety and activated his prodigy subpower, rational charm. The world instantly distilled into logical lines of kinetic force, momentum, and vulnerability. He wasn't just seeing the jungle. He was seeing the Vapor Beast's potential attack patterns. Blaze, hold your strike, Kale commanded, his voice unnervingly calm. Its primary KS is density shifting. If you hit it when it's gaseous, you waste the shot. If you hit it when it's solid, you'll break your hand. Wait for my signal. Crunch. The beast attacked. It wasn't a shadow. It was a visible distortion of the air. A blur of dense, condensed kinetic force that slammed into a nearby 2-foot-thick tree, shattering it into splinters. The creature then instantly desolidified, turning into a hissing, blinding cloud of hot vapor before relocating behind another tree. It's too fast, Blaze yelled, unleashing a precautionary blaze whip that incinerated the empty space the beast had just occupied. The Vapor Beast reappeared, solidified, and charged directly at Blaze, its condensed fist aimed at his head. Its attack was a dominating, high-level maneuver, raw power designed to crush the will of its opponent. Blaze dodged instinctively, but the beast's speed was overwhelming. Its fist clipped his shoulder plate, and the sheer force buckled the metal and sent Blaze spinning. The blow was so dominant it would have knocked out a dozen foundation-tier students. Kale moved. He couldn't afford to let Blaze, their primary damage dealer, be disabled. The beast turned its condensed attention to Kale, seeing the primary threat in the unassuming superior. It delivered a blindingly fast right hook. Kale slipped away from the punch, the corrosive steam hissing where the blow cut the air. He anchored 2 filament threads to the ground behind him for balance, pivoted on his back foot, and launched a spinning roundhouse kick to the Vapor Beast's shifting jawline. The impact was a shockwave. The beast didn't fly, but the kick, delivered with the precise kinetic whip of his filament-anchored leg, enhanced by his kinetic focus trait, hit exactly when the beast was transitioning between states. The shock destabilized its KS field, causing it to momentarily flash from dense white to a vulnerable, watery blue. Now Gale, Kale yelled, his eyes narrowed. Gale reacted instantly. She slammed her staff into the ground. In a focused wind shear, a blade of compressed air slammed into the blue, vulnerable core of the beast, momentarily stunning its kinetic control. The beast roared, steam erupting as it fought to solidify. This was Kale's chance. He channeled all his energy into a dense network of invisible threads, weaving a kinetic cage around the creature's core. Blaze, maximum charge, aim for the heart. Blaze, nursing his broken shoulder armor, nodded grimly. He channeled every ounce of his level 42 power into a single, focused jet of incineration flame. The flame hit the filament-restrained beast, and this time the heat didn't dissipate. It cooked the creature from the inside out. The vapor beast collapsed, its condensed kinetic body dissolving into a quiet puddle of water. Level up! Cale Vance has reached level 38. Kinetic signature growth enhanced. High-level beast kill. OVUL 52. Tactical command demonstrated. Title unlocked. Keen sense. Your tactical awareness is now permanently enhanced. All future attempts to discover enemy weakness or analyze a KS signature are 20% more effective. Cale leaned on his staff, breathing deeply. He looked over at a nearby student from another team, a girl with a simple earth manipulation, KS, who was weeping over her partner, who had been cleanly crushed by the Vapor Beast's initial charge. Death was a frequent, unsentimental visitor to the Wild Zone. He helped Blaze to his feet. He had saved his friend, secured the FDF credit, and unlocked a pivotal title, the Keen Sense. His ability to analyze combat was now intrinsically linked to his physical growth, cementing his identity as the prodigy who fights with his brain. You didn't just win, Cale, Gale said, her voice full of awe. You controlled the whole fight. You gave me the exact millisecond I needed. Cale felt the warmth of his friends' respect. The FDF recruiters had seen the whole fight via drone feed. The quiet student who protected the weak had just become a significant player in the Citadel. Chapter 6. The Calculus of Combat. Mr. Silas's office was an anachronism in the chrome and kinetic world of Citadel Academy. It was quiet, smelling of old paper and dust, and lined with physical maps and worn FDF reports from the early years of the war against the Californian Confederacy. Cale Vance, level 38, and newly christened with the Keen Sense title, stood before the former FDF field commander. Silas was a man whose power, a basic form of gravimetric push, was unremarkable, but whose tactical record was legendary. You've caused a noticeable shift in the student hierarchy, Vance, Silas said, not looking up from a strategy map detailing a contested choke point on the Floridian/Californian border. Superior KS, unorthodox skill set, and a growth rate that defies every established kinetic constant. What do you want? Cale didn't hesitate. He used a sliver of his rational charm sub-power, not to persuade, but to filter his own response into pure, unadorned logic. I have the Keen Sense title, sir. It allows me to analyze kinetic flow and identify the logical weakness in a system, Cale stated. But analysis without prediction is useless. I need to unlock tactical intelligence to complete my prodigy profile and transition my analysis into battlefield command. I need your mind. Silas finally looked up, his eyes sharp and assessing. I teach tactics, Vance, not kinetic signatures. The difference between a soldier and a commander is whether they use their own hands to kill or their brain to order 1,000 deaths. You're asking for the latter. And I am prepared to pay the price, Cale replied. Silas gave a dry, humorless smile. Good. We start with the Californian Gorge scenario study this. Silas tapped a holographic projection onto his desk. It showed a tight canyon blocked by 3 stone mages, massive intermediate-tier soldiers from the Confederacy, whose KS allowed them to absorb local geological density, forming nigh-impenetrable rock armor. Your team, Blaze Gale and Shade Silas, dictated. Your objective is to pass. The stone mages are level 60 plus. Your team maxes out at level 42. Go. Cale immediately activated his Keen Sense. The kinetic flows of the stone mages were slow but dense. The solution sprang from his KS roots. I bind the 3 mages with a dozen filament threads, anchoring them to the canyon walls. Cale began, speaking rapidly. Blaze hits them with a focused incineration flame to weaken the rock density. Gale uses wind control to disperse the heat and smoke, giving Shade time to phase and set charges behind the mages. Silas closed the projection. Scenario fail. Cost 3 student lives. Why? Kale frowned, surprised by the blunt rejection. My filament is a superior KS. It can hold level 60 targets. It cannot hold 3 level 60 targets when their kinetic field is actively absorbing local mass, Silas cut in. They are tanks, Vance. You apply force and they absorb it. They shatter your threads. Your tactic is brute force dressed up as precision. Try again, but don't think like a fighter. Think like a killer. Kale took a deep, centering breath. He leaned back against the desk, forcing his mind to reject the obvious. He closed his eyes, focusing his keen sense away from the mage's attack and toward their power source and structure. The stone mages draw strength from the surrounding rock, Kale's mind supplied, suddenly seeing a pattern. But to channel that much density, they must be perfectly stable. Any violent external kinetic vibration might temporarily decouple their control. Kale opened his eyes, a flicker of genuine excitement crossing his face. Sir, the solution isn't kinetic force, it's sonic disruption. Silas raised an eyebrow, a flicker of interest finally in his gaze. The canyon walls are solid, hard rock. They are perfect conductors for kinetic vibration, Kale explained, his voice taking on the logical, persuasive rhythm of his rational charm. The stone mage's density shield is strong, but it's a focused shell. They have no defenses against internal resonance. Explain the execution, Silas ordered, now leaning forward. Blaze does not fire his incineration flame. He sets his flame accelerator rig to maximum kinetic vibration, generating a seismic base pulse, a high-frequency, low-amplitude tremor, and aims it into the closest canyon wall, Kale described, pointing to the map. Gale uses her wind control to compress that sonic energy, creating a concentrated acoustic resonant field aimed directly at the mage's feet. The focused vibration causes a brief but critical disruption in their geological connection. Kale finished with a confident, final deduction. The mage's KS control will momentarily shatter. That single second of disorientation is when I use my filament, not for binding, but for a kinetic anchor shot straight to their unprotected nervous system. 3 shots, 3 kills, 0 losses. Silas stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. The solution is mathematically sound, Vance. You used your keen sense to identify the vulnerability, and you used your team's powers, not as weapons, but as tools to create an environment where your strategy works. Silas deactivated the projection. You see the flow of battle like a machine, Kale. That is the essence of tactical intelligence. Your mind is ready. Now you must prove you can execute it under fire. Does this mean I get the title, sir? Kale asked. Titles aren't granted for solving puzzles, Silas said, standing up. They are earned by surviving them. You will work directly with me now. We have 2 days before your next sanctioned Wild Zone hunt, a hunt designed to test the limits of your growth. Kale knew this was the start of something monumental. He had found his mentor, and he had unlocked the next stage of his prodigy ascent. Chapter 7. Phantom Velocity. The training room floor was cracked. Kale was working on advanced filament techniques when the triplets entered. Ryan, Rin, and Ryle, Phantom, were identical, beautiful, and utterly terrifying. Their superior KS, pure velocity, allowed them to move at near supersonic speeds, often leaving sonic echoes. They were level 45, arrogant, and never acknowledged anyone outside the top 10. Blaze leaned over to Kale. They're faster than Jet's aura flight. They think they're royalty. Ryle stopped directly in front of Kale, her eyes a flat, focused gray. You are slow, Filament. Your threads are predictable. Speed is worthless without control, Kale countered calmly, activating his rational charm. Ryan and Rin simultaneously performed a sonic flash, a coordinated high-speed blur meant to disorient. Kale immediately shot 2 filaments, not at them, but at the exact point where the reflection of the light bounced off their synchronized kinetic fields. The threads generated a kinetic resonance, momentarily disrupting their balance. Impressive, defensive but slow, Ryan said, reappearing, barely winded. We attack 10 times before you launch once. But I only have to launch once, Kale replied. You rely on chaos. Chaos can be mapped. Gale watched the exchange, noting the tension. They're a kinetic force of nature, Kale. You can't fight them conventionally. We don't, Kale said, turning back to his training. We'll wait for them to make a mistake. Speed always creates gaps. The interaction established the triplets as a looming, superior threat, defined by pure power, forcing Kale to rely further on his tactical intelligence. Chapter 8. The Living Mask. Kale needed to master the concept of misdirection for Silas's next simulation. He sought out Lyra Mask, the intermediate tier student, with malleable KS duplication, cloning, transformation. She was level 35, but was perpetually withdrawn. Kale found her sketching alone by the rarely used water fountain. Lyra, I need to understand your power. Lyra flinched, her body shimmering faintly, as she instinctively tried to transform into the nearby wall. Don't. It's confusing. It's hard to tell who I am. That's exactly why it's a superior technique, Kale insisted gently, using a focused stream of rational charm. You don't need to be strong, you need to be strategic. How do you distinguish between your clone and yourself? Lyra hesitated, the charm calming her existential kinetic tremor. The clone, it's a reflection of my memory. It can't feel. When I transform, I'm just wearing the memory of that person's form. It's empty inside. Then you are the original because you feel, Kale stated simply. Your value isn't your level, Lyra. It's your absolute tactical utility. You can be anyone, go anywhere. That's true power. Lyra's eyes, usually clouded with uncertainty, cleared. You don't want me to fight? I want you to be the perfect decoy, Kale said with a supportive smile. Your power is information warfare. Kale had gained a powerful, fragile ally, built on trust and strategic appreciation, not intimidation. Chapter 9. Inferno's Spark. The air in the K-Core sparring ring was thick with heat. Blaze, level 43, was sparring with Seraph Spark, level 41, a high-level student whose KS was a volatile mix of flash teleportation and localized plasma burst. Seraph was the younger sister of Flash, whom Kale had beaten. Too slow, Blaze. Your Blaze whip is predictable, Spark taunted, teleporting behind him and landing a playful, yet powerful plasma tap on his armored back. Predictable, maybe, but guaranteed, Blaze roared, channeling his power into an inferno shell that engulfed him in defensive flame. Spark instantly teleported 10 feet away, laughing. You waste kinetic energy on defense, Spark cried. I waste kinetic energy on surviving long enough to kiss you later, Blaze shouted back, and both quickly deactivated their KS and rushed together, laughing despite the danger of their environment. Later, Blaze confided in Kale. She's a fire. I'm fire. It's intense, Kale. I feel like my power and my heart are finally stable. She's worth the risk. She's great, Kale, Kale said, truly happy for his impulsive friend. Just remember, the war is about more than kinetic power. It's about trust. Their relationship was a beacon of pure, hot passion in the cold reality of the Citadel. Chapter 10. The Hallway Gauntlet. Jet Aura Valor, annoyed by Kale's growing popularity, decided to make another move. He posted 2 intermediate tier students, Chain, elasticity, such rope, and Hammer, kinetic force projection, at a crowded common room exit. Jet's new hallway gauntlet. Their target, any student who spoke to Kale. Kale, now level 39, saw the trap immediately. Blaze and Gale were with him. This is ridiculous, Blaze growled, fire crackling around his hands. No, this is Jet trying to force a fight he can watch, Kale stated, his eyes calculating. And we are going to finish it now. Kale walked directly to Chain. Chain, cocky, launched an elastic, high-tension rope strike at Kale's chest. Kale didn't block. He subtly shot a single filament thread, anchoring it to the rope mid-flight. He then propelled himself forward with the kinetic force of Chain's own throw. Kale slipped away from the rope's binding, landing perfectly beside Hammer, who was preparing a massive force punch. Hammer swung wide. Kale slipped away from the punch with a swift kinetic hip sway, ducked low, and launched a spinning roundhouse kick to Hammer's face. The kick was deceptively powerful, amplified by the precise kinetic focus of his ankle-anchored filament, and Hammer went flying, hitting the wall with a sickening thud. Chain launched another rope, attempting to bind Kale's legs. "The gauntlet is closed," Kale said, his rational charm thrumming. He used 3 threads to create a kinetic energy web that caught Chain's rope, dissolving its kinetic stability. The common room erupted in cheers. Kale had beaten 2 intermediate-tier students in seconds, with clean, tactical moves, and without using brute force. Jet's influence was waning. Kale Vance was rapidly becoming the Academy's silent champion. Part 2, The Ascension and the Draft Stakes. Chapter 11, The Level Grind. The team was deep in the wild zone, targeting the level 55 Rockhide Scorpions, beasts known for their impenetrable density and high XP yield. Kale, level 39, was determined to hit level 45 before the next FDF review. "These things are tanks, Kale," Blaze warned, his inferno armor shimmering. "My fire barely cracks the hide." "We won't aim for the hide," Kale said, his keen sense active. "Their weakness is flexibility. They are jointed." The Rockhide Scorpion, massive and 6-legged, burst from the undergrowth, its hide like granite. Action, it charged, forcing the team to scatter. Blaze instantly launched a focused incineration flame, not at the body, but the ground ahead of the beast, superheating the rock. Gale followed instantly, using her wind control to compress the heat and smoke, forcing the Scorpion to hesitate. Kale then used the momentary stop. He launched 3 filaments that were pre-braided for tension and directed them to the main kinetic joints of the Scorpion's rear legs. He applied opposing kinetic force, not enough to snap the joints, but enough to seize them. The Scorpion, immobilized, thrashed violently. "Now, Blaze, the shell is weakened by the heat," Kale commanded. Blaze launched a sustained inferno shell that focused on a single, weakened segment of the carapace. The shell cracked, and Kale used his filament to penetrate the breach, ensuring the killing blow. "Level up. Kale Vance has reached level 40, kinetic signature growth enhanced." The successful, coordinated kill reaffirmed their reliance on Kale's strategy, and the shared intensity brought Kale and Gale closer. Chapter 12, The Unsent Letter. The mood in the Citadel was somber. A Foundation-tier student, desperate for XP, had attempted a solo hunt against a mid-level beast and was found dead, his KS shield shattered. The funeral was brief and harsh. Mr. Silas spoke to the reality of the draft. That student failed his family. He failed his duty. If you do not grow strong enough to be drafted into the FDF, police, or fire department, you go back. You work the factory floors, earning scraps, and you hope you don't get sick. Later, Kale and Shade were sitting by the common room window. Shade was clutching a letter he had written home but never sent. "They're counting on me, Kale. If I get sent back, my little sister will work the cleanup crews," Shade whispered, his body trembling, invisibility flickering uncontrollably. Kale put a supportive hand on Shade's shoulder. "Then we don't fail. Your power is stealth. My power is strategy. We protect each other, Shade. That's what a team does." Shade looked at Kale with pure, desperate hope. "You really think I can make the police draft?" "I think you can make commander," Kale stated, the rational charm lending conviction to the lie. "We just need to work harder." Chapter 13. The influence engine, Kale, level 40, was focused on unlocking his next prodigy's subpower, influence. This was the most complex, a form of kinetic persuasion that allowed him to subtly sway the actions of others. Not just with logic, but emotional guidance. He needed access to a high-level simulator restricted to top 50 students. He approached Professor Vane, a notoriously difficult intermediate-tier instructor. "Professor, I need access to the V-Sim for integrated filament training," Kale requested. "Vance, your rank is 87. That sim is for top 50, Vane stated flatly. Kale focused his influence. He didn't change his words, but he injected them with a subtle kinetic resonance that whispered trust and progress into Vane's mind. "Sir, my keen sense shows the V-Sim has a kinetic dampening flaw when running elemental scenarios, allowing me to test my filament there. will not only further my prodigy growth, but give you data on a critical system flaw, Kale explained. Vane blinked, rubbing his temples. He felt a sudden logical need to trust the student. It does have a flaw. The data would be useful. All right, Vance, 1 hour. But don't tell anyone I allowed this. Kale had successfully used influence for the first time. He realized the terrifying potential. This power could be used for good or for total manipulation. It made him pause, understanding the true responsibility of his title. Chapter 14. The twin threat, Blaze, level 43, and Kale, level 41, were challenged by two of the phantom triplets, Ryan and Rin, level 46. The drill was simple. Retrieve a flag from the center of the K-core. Try to keep up, Blaze, Ryan taunted, their voices synchronized. The twins launched instantly, moving as a single supersonic blue blur, their pure velocity leaving sonic distortion in their wake. Blaze tried to counter with a wide area inferno field, but the twins simply moved too fast, darting around the fire. Aday's Kale activated his keen sense. He focused not on the twins, but the kinetic flow of the air. He realized Rin's footsteps were subtly heavier, a nanosecond slower than Ryan's. Blaze! Not at the sound! At the second shadow, Kale yelled. Blaze, relying completely on Kale's command, launched a narrow blaze lance at the slower Rin's predicted trajectory. The speed of the lance was too slow, but the heat forced Rin to momentarily break synchronization. This was Kale's chance. He shot a single, heavily charged filament thread, using his kinetic focus, anchoring it to the fastest twin, Ryan. He then yanked, disrupting Ryan's momentum just enough to collide with the slightly slower Rin. The twins, momentarily stunned by the collision, glared at Kale. Your speed means nothing if you can't be perfect, Kale stated. Blaze was breathing hard. You turn their speed against them. That's the tactical intelligence at work, Kale. Chapter 15. The Broken Trust. The FDF was running a large-scale simulation in the K-core, and Kale's team was performing flawlessly. But suddenly the central command relay malfunctioned, flooding the arena with non-lethal, high-density kinetic dampening foam, ruining the drill. The FDF lieutenant was furious. Surveillance footage showed Gale tampering with the control panel moments before the flaw. Gale, explain yourself, the lieutenant roared. Gale was white with shock. I didn't. I was never near that panel. Kale activated his keen sense. The kinetic signature on the footage was weak, unstable, and mutable, not the clean, focused wind signature of Gale. He immediately suspected Lyra, acting under Jet's coercion. The stress fractured Blaze and Spark's intense relationship. You said you were studying, Spark, Blaze yelled later that night. Why were you seen near Gale's training area? I wasn't, Blaze. It was probably a clone, or... Spark stammered, realizing she couldn't explain. It's the stress, Spark. We're too intense for this, Blaze said, his voice heavy with despair. We're done. I can't be distracted. Spark, hurt and defiant, channeled a burst of flash energy and teleported away, leaving Blaze standing alone. The high stakes of the Citadel had claimed their romance. Chapter 16. Unmasking the Imposter. Kale knew he had to clear Gale's name. He found Lyra masked in the library, looking miserable. The signature was malleable, Lyra. It was you, Kale said quietly. Jet forced you, didn't he? Lyra instantly transformed into a perfect replica of Jet Aura Valor, complete with a sneer. Prove it, Filament. Maybe Jet did it himself. Jet only uses raw power, Kale countered, using a sharp, focused burst of rational charm. He wouldn't risk using his own signature. He relies on others. You're trying to hide in a facade, Lyra, but you don't know Jet's kinetic flow. Your mask is empty. That's the only way I know it's you. Lyra's form flickered, and she reverted to herself, tears streaming down her face. He threatened to expose my family's old Foundation tier criminal history if I didn't help him frame Gale. I'm sorry, Kale. Kale helped Lyra stand. I won't let him hurt you or Gale. We're fighting against the system, Lyra, and you're the most valuable asset we have. Can you clone Jet's KS signature again, but make the clone unstable? Lyra nodded, her loyalty cemented. Kale had gained a tactical weapon, saving Gale's reputation and gaining Lyra's trust completely. Chapter 17. Vengeance for the Weak. Kale, level 42, and his team headed deep into the Wild Zone. Kale's objective? Hunt the level 60 armored boar, the beast that had killed the Foundation tier student in Chapter 12. The boar was a nightmare, pure, dense kinetic muscle, encased in a naturally reinforced hide. Action. The boar charged, its strength dominating the battlefield. It was too fast for Blaze to flank, and too dense for Gale's wind to disrupt. Kale knew a conventional strike was useless. He had to hit it internally. Kale activated keen sense and kinetic focus. He launched a triple braided filament not at the hide, but through the microscopic gap where the tusk met the jawline. A risky nanometer precision shot. The thread slipped through, anchoring inside the boar's muscle tissue. The boar roared, shaking violently. Kale yanked the thread, causing a focused internal kinetic vibration. The boar's hyperdense muscles, unable to absorb the localized internal shock, began to tear themselves apart. The beast crumpled, dying from a surgical internal strike. Level up! Kale Vance has reached level 45. Kinetic signature growth enhanced. Title unlocked. Brawler. Your tactical mindset is complemented by raw kinetic output. Grants 10% increase in unarmed weapon kinetic output. Kale had avenged the weak student and unlocked a physical power title to balance his strategic one. He was no longer just a tactician. He was a serious combat threat. Chapter 18. The Commander's Seal. Kale's success in the Wild Zone drew the attention of the FDF lieutenant, who brought him to Mr. Silas. Silas presented Kale with a set of lightweight, specialized gauntlets. These were meant for a top 10 superior, Vance. They channel your kinetic output directly into your filament, giving you the kinetic leverage of a level 60. A temporary boost? Kale asked, testing the feel of the gauntlets. A tool for a tactical prodigy, Silas corrected. You understand that your power is command. You don't fight to kill, you fight to control the flow. Jet Valor uses brute strength. You use calculated destruction. You are now designated a tactical asset by the FDF. Use this power wisely. The war demands morality. Kale looked at the gauntlets. I will use this power to ensure that no more families are forced back to the slums, sir. Chapter 19. Brother and sister. Blaze was fuming in the dormitory common room. He was level 46, but Kale was only one level behind him and was dating his sister Gale. You're spending all your time with Kale, Blaze accused Gale, who was meticulously cleaning her windstaff. He's making you soft, Gale. You need to focus on fire department training, not romantic combat strategy. He's making me better, Blaze, Gale shot back, her voice sharp. He sees my KS as a tactical tool, not just a defensive barrier. He doesn't treat me like a high-level weapon. He treats me like a strategist. He's going to get the commander draft, Gale. That's the front line. I don't want my sister fighting the Californian stone giants, Blaze yelled, fire momentarily igniting the air around his head. Gale stepped close, dropping her voice. And what if I want to fight, Blaze? What if I want to use my power to save people from the war? You're angry because he's not you, but he's the only one who sees me as more than just your little sister. Blaze slumped, defeated. Just don't die on the front line, Gale. Mom and Dad, I won't, she promised, giving him a tight, honest hug. I have the best tactician in the academy protecting me. Chapter 20. The top 10 line. Kale, level 47, had officially broken into the top 10. Jet Aura Valor, level 48, was furious. He needed to reassert his dominance. Jet descended into the main quad, his aura blazing, causing a stir among the students. Vance! Jet's voice boomed, amplified by his kinetic field. Your little filament parlor tricks are over. Your tactical growth is a fluke. Kale stopped, his hand resting on his new gauntlets. My growth is inevitable, Jet. Then let's make it a show, Jet sneered. I challenge you to a leveling race. The first one to claim a level 65 plus beast kill, the dreaded Infernal Serpent, gets the FDF commander recommendation. I'll use my speed. You use your intelligence. Let the Academy watch your inevitable failure. Kale looked Jet straight in the eye, the rational charm in his voice cutting through Jet's bravado. Accepted, Jet. Let's see if pure speed can beat a perfect strategy. The stage was set for the ultimate test of the Prodigy. Part 3, The Prodigy Takes Command. Chapter 21, Race Against Aura. The leveling race for the level 68 Infernal Serpent began. Jet launched instantly, using his aura flight to become a sonic blue streak, disappearing toward the Wild Zone's deepest, most dangerous canyons. Kale, Gale, and Blaze took a strategic route. Kale had brought Lyra Mask. Jet thinks this is a sprint, Kale said, studying his topographical kinetic map. But the Serpent is a thermal tracker. Speed is a liability here. Kale instructed Lyra to transform into Blaze. Lyra, I need you to lead Jet on a thermal chase. Use minor fire blast to create high heat signatures on a false path. Make him think the Serpent is there. Why not just turn into the Serpent? Lyra asked. Because Jet would kill it, Kale said, a chillingly calm logic in his tone. He has to be hunting something. We are giving him a ghost to chase. Lyra nodded, understanding the psychological warfare. She generated an unstable, high-heat Blaze clone and sent it flying on Jet's projected course. Jet, spotting the high-level signature, immediately diverted his attention to the Blaze decoy. Kale's team, meanwhile, took the slow, cold path toward the real target. Chapter 22, A Feather and a Thread. Kale's team reached the geothermal pit where the Infernal Serpent, level 68, lived. The colossal beast was a fiery nightmare, its skin rippling with liquid flame. Jet arrived moments later, furious that the Blaze clone had vanished. He saw Kale's team preparing for the fight and instantly attacked Kale, trying to force a duel. You led me on a fool's chase, Vance. This kill is mine, Jet roared, launching a dominating aura push meant to flatten Kale. Kale ignored Jet. Blaze, sustained fire on the thermal vents. Gale, create a vacuum barrier. Jet's push was powerful, but Kale used his filament to anchor himself to a high rock, making himself immobile against the superior force. The Serpent, alerted by Jet's raw kinetic energy, turned its attention to the level 48 superior. Action. The Serpent launched a massive stream of liquid flame. Jet dodged, but the Serpent's speed was unexpected. Kale used his keen sense and spotted the Serpent's vulnerability. The tiny diamond-like kinetic sensor on its head, used to track heat. Blaze, distraction, Kale yelled. Blaze launched a massive arcing blaze whip that illuminated the whole canyon. In that moment of blinding light, Kale launched his deadliest strike. He used his commander gauntlets to fire a filament thread, enhanced by kinetic focus and brawler might, straight at the sensor. The thread hit its mark. The Serpent shrieked, its kinetic tracking instantly shattering. It became blind. Jet, watching the tactical genius, hesitated. Blaze, finish it, Kale commanded. Blaze launched a sustained, high-power incineration flame directly into the Serpent's open mouth. The level 68 beast exploded in a final, dying burst of fire. Level up. Kale Vance has reached level 49. Kinetic signature growth enhanced. Kale had won the race by using the enemy's strength, the Serpent, against his rival, Jet. Toans, Chapter 23. A confined world, Kale, level 50, and Gale, level 50, were sparring in a closed-off sector of the K-Core. Their relationship was now public knowledge, and they trained with an intimacy born of total trust. Action. Gale created a complex lattice of focused wind shears designed to trap Kale. Kale activated his keen sense and tactical intelligence, finding the 1 nanometer gap in the lattice. He used his filament to propel himself through the gap. He slipped away from a fast, focused wind punch, and as Gale pivoted, Kale countered with a rapid brawler title, enhanced chop to her rib plating. He pinned her to the kinetic foam floor. You win, Gale whispered, smiling up at him. You always find the line of least resistance. I have to, Kale said, leaning in. If I can't find the flaw in the system, we don't survive. Their relationship was the only place they could truly lower their guard. Their dialogue was quiet, focused on their future and the desperate hope of surviving the war together. What if we both get drafted to different fronts, Kale? Gale asked, her eyes full of fear. Then I will use my rank, my titles, and my influence to pull you back, Kale promised, kissing her gently. We fight this war together, even if we are apart. Chapter 24. The Grand Tournament. The Citadel announced the Kinetic Grand Tournament, a single elimination bracket for the top 100 students. The winner was guaranteed the ultimate prize. Top 3 FDF command structure, bypassing all police and fire drafts and ensuring a lifetime of wealth and influence for their families. The stakes had never been higher. Kale, level 50, Jet, level 50, the triplets, level 52, Lyra, level 45, Blaze, level 48, and Gale, level 50, were all competing. Kale walked the K-Core floor, his heart pounding. This was not about XP, this was about destiny. He looked across the arena and saw Jet, radiating blue kinetic arrogance. I will see you in the finals, Vance, Jet shouted, his voice echoing. Your strategy will break against my raw speed. Chapter 25. Shade's stand, Shade level 32, was in the first round, facing Gator level 40, the martial arts specialist who had tried to bully him in Chapter 3. Shade was terrified. I can't beat him, Kale. He's level 40, Shade whispered to Kale. Levels are useless against strategy, Kale reminded him, using the rational charm to steady Shade's kinetic output. He hits what he sees. Don't hide, Shade. Fade, make him hit air. Action, the fight began. Gator, overconfident, lunged with his reinforced knuckles. Shade, remembering Kale's command, didn't panic. He activated his invisibility sub-power before Gator swung, achieving perfect phase state. Gator punched air. Shade then used his invisibility to rapidly reposition behind Gator. He materialized for a split second and delivered a precise defensive strike with his practice knife to Gator's temple. The strike wasn't powerful, but it was perfectly aimed at the kinetic weakness Kale had identified. Gator went down, stunned. Victory! Shade advances! Shade stood over his defeated bully, shaking but triumphant. He had won. He had secured his chance at the fire department draft. Chapter 26. The Phantom's Silence. Kale, level 51, faced the Phantom triplets, level 52, in the quarterfinals. This was effectively a 3-on-1. Action, the triplets, Ryan, Rin, and Ryle, attacked simultaneously, a swirling vortex of pure velocity. They struck Kale from 3 directions, their kinetic fields generating a deafening sonic roar. Kale shut off his hearing, relying solely on his keen sense and tactical intelligence. He saw the 3 blurs, but his analysis revealed a kinetic flicker. Ryle, still slightly slower than her brothers, was the weak point. Kale shot dozens of filaments, creating a wide, low-tension kinetic web across the floor. The twins, too focused on speed, didn't see the non-lethal trap. Ryan and Rin zipped over it, but Ryle's slightly delayed stride caught the lowest filament. Her footfall was disrupted, momentarily breaking their kinetic synchronization. Gale's spot, Blaze's fire, Kale muttered, using the old team commands to focus his solo attack. Kale launched a high-velocity filament anchor shot, a move designed by Silas, into the tiny gap in Ryle's kinetic field. The impact didn't hurt her, but it shut down her velocity KS entirely. The moment reel stopped, Ryan and Rin crashed into her, the shock of their collective speed overloading their defensive kinetic output. The triplets yielded, stunned into silence. Kale had beaten speed with geometry and analysis. Chapter 27. Mask versus Thread. Kale, level 52, faced his new ally, Lyra Mask, level 45, in the semifinals. This was a mental battle of trust and deception. Action. Lyra instantly deployed 5 clones, all looking and fighting exactly like Kale, complete with invisible filament threads. The arena was instantly chaotic. Kale activated his keen sense. All the clones had Kale's kinetic flow, but Lyra's original KS of malleable duplication was layered over it. The clones, being only reflections of memory, were kinetically perfect, but static. They couldn't react to spontaneous change. Kale used his influence sub-power, broadcasting a subtle emotional signal of "you are lost" across the arena. The 5 Kale clones in the original Lyra all stopped, momentarily confused by the emotional attack. Kale then launched a single focused filament thread designed to disrupt the clone with the most predictable kinetic flow, the one standing exactly where Kale would normally stand. The clone dissolved. Kale attacked the next most predictable, then the next. Finally, only Lyra remained. She reverted to her own form, defeated. "I couldn't beat your logic," she said, yielding. "You are a terrifying strategist, Lyra," Kale told her. "But I know your heart, and your heart is not a weapon." Chapter 28. The Fading Aura. Jet Aura Valor, level 53, was facing Typhoon, level 52, a high-level water manipulation student. Jet, overconfident, treated the match like a flyover, using only raw speed and aura punches. Action, Typhoon was patient. He used his KS to create high-density water walls and pressure spikes. Jet's speed was too fast for the water walls, but the constant minor collisions with the high-pressure water sapped his kinetic reserve. Typhoon forced Jet into a corner, then launched a massive, crushing sphere of pressurized water. Jet was forced to use 80% of his KS to shatter the sphere. He won, but he was visibly panting, injured, and relying on brute, inefficient power. Blaze watched the match with satisfaction. "He's all flash and no fuse. Kale will dismantle him." Jet, catching Kale's eye in the stands, glared with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. He knew his raw power had peaked. Kale's strategy was still accelerating. Chapter 29. The final stage. Kale and Gale were in the quiet gardens, away from the roaring crowds. The final match was tomorrow, Kale versus Jet. "Please be careful, Kale," Gale said, holding his hand tightly. "If you win, you get the FDF Commander track. That's the heaviest fighting against the Californian Confederacy." "I have to win, Gale," Kale replied, tracing the lines on her knuckles. "If I don't win the Commander track, I get drafted into an intermediate post where I have no control. If I'm Commander, I can bring you and Blaze up to the safest tactical positions. I can change the system. I just don't want to lose you," she whispered, leaning into his chest. "I lost Blaze and Spark to the pressure. I can't lose you to the war." Kale embraced her, channeling his rational charm, not to persuade her, but to ground her fear into a tense sense of safety. "We will be fine, I promise you. I have a strategy for Jet and a strategy for the war. We survive." Chapter 30. The Prodigy of Control, the Grand Final. Kale, level 54, versus Jet, level 52. The arena was packed with students and FDF recruiters. Action, Jet launched immediately, a terrifying blue comet. He dominated the opening, relying on raw aura flight and sonic bursts, aiming to overwhelm Kale before he could set up. Kale used his commander gauntlets and filament to anchor himself repeatedly, absorbing the kinetic shock and yielding ground. All while activating his keen sense, Kale saw the flaw. Jet's over-reliance on the kinetic dampening floor to absorb the residual force of his sonic acceleration. Kale used his filament to manipulate the dust and light in the arena, hiding his precise movements. He then used a burst of influence to broadcast a sudden sharp signal of overload into Jet's mind. Jet, momentarily distracted, launched a full-power sonic strike into the ground near Kale. And this was the trap. Kale had subtly planted 3 filament threads under the surface. Jet's sonic force traveled through the ground, into Kale's threads, and back into the ground, overloading the floor's dampening system. The arena floor sparked violently. Jet was momentarily stunned, his aura flickering. Kale dashed forward, using his brawler title and kinetic focus. He launched a devastating series of filament threads, weaving a complex kinetic binding around Jet's limbs, torso, and neck. He pinned Jet, immobile, against the sparking floor. "You're defeated," Kale said, the thread holding firm. Jet roared in rage, but he couldn't move. He had been defeated by a superior mind. Victory! Kale Vance wins the grand tournament. Title unlocked. The better man. Your mastery of strategy and ethics makes you a kinetic leader. grants 10% increase in team influence range and efficiency. Kale had secured the #1 draft spot. The overlooked student was now the Citadel's undisputed prodigy. Part 4, War and Destiny, Chapter 31. The draft roster. The FDF draft ceremony was held with military precision. The lieutenant stood at the podium, calling out the names. The following students are assigned to FDF Command Track. Gale, Superior KS, Tactical Advisor. Gale gasped, relief washing over her. Kale Vance, Prodigy KS, Commander Track, 1st Battalion. Kale walked across the stage, accepting the FDF Commander's plaque. The following students are assigned to FDF Frontline Infantry. Blaze, High-Level KS, Combat Specialist. Blaze walked to the stage, his face grim but proud. He would be fighting, but he had a guaranteed salary for his family. The following student is assigned to Police Force Tactical Deployment. Jet Aura Valor, Superior KS, Excessive Force Profile. Jet's face went white with fury. The police force was safe but offered none of the command structure or prestige he craved. He glared at Kale, a promise of future revenge in his eyes. The following student is assigned to Fire Department, Rescue Relief. Shade, Weak Level KS, Essential Stealth. Shade wept with relief. He was safe. His family was saved. The friends embraced, the joy of survival mixed with the pain of separation. Chapter 32. A Soldier's Grief. 2 weeks after the draft, Kale and Gale were undergoing advanced FDF integration training. The Citadel was quiet. Then the news came. A surprise skirmish on the Texas-Florida border. Tragedy. Flash, Blaze's old rival and Sparks' brother, was killed instantly when his tactical unit was flanked by a superior Texas sovereignty force. He had been drafted into the FDF front line. Kale and Gale sat in the common room, stunned. Flash had been arrogant, but he had been a classmate. "He was just level 35 when you beat him," Gale whispered, tears in her eyes. "He was still a high level, and he died." "The war doesn't care about your level," Kale said, his voice flat. "It only cares about the strength of the enemy." Flash died because his unit was tactically outmaneuvered. Kale looked at his commander gauntlets. He had promised to change the system. He had promised to protect his friends. He channeled his grief into his tactical intelligence. He would not allow tactical failure to claim anyone else. Chapter 33. First Deployment. Kale and Gale were deployed to their first operational base near the Mojave border, territory contested by the Californian Confederacy. Their mission: reconnaissance and kinetic mapping. "Keep your aerodynamic perception on max, Gale," Kale instructed, scanning the desert with his keen sense. The Californians rely on Earth/Stone KS. They hide their movements in the seismic flow. "It's terrifying, Kale," Gale admitted, her hand trembling slightly. "It's not the K-Core anymore. I hear the wind, and it sounds like shouting." Kale stopped, pulling her into a quick, firm embrace. He activated his rational charm and influence simultaneously, broadcasting a shield of calm focus. "Focus on the objective, Gale. Every move is tactical. Your job is to predict the wind. My job is to control the threat of fate." They moved through the desolate, contested canyons. Gale spotted minute seismic shifts caused by the Californians' deep-rooted kinetic movement. Kale mapped the routes, confirming his analysis. The Californians were setting a massive stone-based kinetic trap. Chapter 34. The Siege of the Desert. Kale's unit, a small FDF scout team, was ambushed. 3 Californian stone giants, level 60+, rose from the earth, their kinetic armor thick and nigh invulnerable. Action, the giants dominated, launching massive stone fists that crushed the surrounding terrain. Kale's small FDF unit was immediately pinned down, unable to breach the enemy's density shields. "Inferior force, Commander Vance. We need to retreat," the corporal yelled. "Negative," Kale commanded, his voice sharp and controlled. He saw the giants' coordinated attack pattern, predictable, slow, and reliant on brute force. He spotted a subtle fault line in their forward movement. Kale launched a heavily charged filament, anchoring it to a piece of debris directly in the path of the lead giant. He then used his propulsion ability to launch the entire FDF unit into a rapid repositioning maneuver, slipping them away from the immediate kinetic kill zone. Gale, concentrated wind shear into the dust. Blind them! Gale launched a high-speed wind attack, kicking up a blinding curtain of sand and dust. Gale used the cover to execute his plan. He launched dozens of filaments, creating high-tension sonic tripwires across the floor, aiming to disrupt the giant's stable geological footing. The giants stumbled, their massive forms momentarily unbalanced. Gale had gained the strategic moment. Chapter 35. The Better Man. The Mojave border was a nightmare of cracked earth in kinetic warfare. The Californian Confederacy's stone giants, level 60-plus tanks of dense, earth-manipulated muscle, dominated the canyon floor, their presence crushing the morale of Gale's small FDF command team. "We're taking heavy pressure, Commander Vance," shouted a nearby corporal, clutching a bleeding arm. "Their density shields are absorbing everything. We can't get a clear shot at the kinetic core." Gale, now level 60 and wearing the lightweight Commander SEAL armor, didn't panic. His tactical intelligence was running at full capacity, processing hundreds of data streams, wind shear patterns, Gale's passive KS, seismic tremors, and the enemy's predictable advance rate. "Gale, target the ridge above the second unit," Gale commanded, his voice carrying the irresistible calm of his rational charm. "Not for damage. Create a sustained high-frequency wind buffer. Prevent sound waves from transmitting." Gale, level 59, nodded grimly, already channeling her wind control to create an invisible, high-density air wall that absorbed all noise, confusing the enemy's coordinated charges. Gale saw the Californian commander, a massive woman named Rocker, level 70, metal control, emerge from the ranks. She was the one they needed to defeat to break the siege. Her metal control KS allowed her to coat her soldiers in external armor and fling kilometer-long metal spears. "Rocker is their anchor," Gale yelled into his comms. "She's using the embedded metal in the canyon rocks to augment her defense. She must be isolated." Gale focused his keen sense. He saw the web of kinetic energy connecting Rocker to the earth, a subtle, shimmering network of pure metal manipulation. It was a complex, beautiful, and utterly predictable pattern. "It's a kinetic siphon," Gale's mind supplied. "She's pulling mass from deep underground. If I cut her access, she starves." But getting close was suicide. Rocker flung a massive, razor-sharp metal lance toward Gale. Gale used his filament to anchor to a passing lance, not to stop it, but to redirect its path by a meter, making it harmlessly embed itself in the rock beside him. He needed an opening. He needed his final, powerful prodigy subpower, influence. Gale stepped out into the open, ignoring the scattered laser fire, and began channeling his KS. He focused his influence not just on his own FDF unit, but across the entire canyon, broadcasting a single, powerful surge of pure, focused will. "Stop!" Gale's voice boomed, not through his comms, but through the psychic channel of his power, hitting every single soldier, friend, and enemy alike. For a terrifying, glorious instant, the entire battlefield hesitated. The sheer logical force of Gale's will, his conviction that this was the moment of weakness, made every opponent question their next move. Rocker, the metal commander, was stunned. She halted her siphon, trying to locate the source of the psychic intrusion. That single moment of kinetic decoupling was all Gale needed. Gale dashed forward, his filament flaring. He wove a complex six-braided thread designed using his tactical intelligence. It wasn't a binding thread. It was a kinetic circuit breaker. The thread bypassed Rocker's external metal shell and embedded itself in the exposed rock near her ankle, her anchor point. If she siphons, she completes the circuit, Gale thought, launching a final, full-power brawler punch to the thread's anchor point. The impact, a combination of physical strike and kinetic discharge, traveled through the filament directly into Rocker's vital anchor point. Her metal control backfired. Instead of drawing strength, the sudden kinetic feedback overloaded her system. Her external armor instantly dissolved, and the level 70 commander dropped, convulsing, unable to channel any KS. The stone giants, stripped of their command structure, immediately stalled. their density dissolving into useless dust. Victory, Californian commander, defeated by kinetic backflow. Cale Vance has reached level 61. FDF command, standing superior. Cale leaned on his knee, gasping for air. The battle won by logic and skill, not raw force. Gale rushed to his side, throwing her arms around him. Cale, you used the influence, you made them freeze. You broke the whole siege. It cost too much, Cale whispered, the adrenaline fading, leaving only exhaustion. But it worked. The remaining Californian forces retreated. Cale had not just survived his first battle, he had commanded a victory over a superior force using only his evolved prodigy skills. Later that evening, Cale and Gale sat on the ridge overlooking the newly secured desert. Blaze and Shade were safe, deployed elsewhere in Floridia's defensive line. Blaze is still complaining about police work, but he's safe, Cale, Gale said, resting her head on his shoulder. Shade's saving people from burning buildings. We all got drafted. We all survived the Citadel. Cale reached up and gently moved a lock of hair from her face. We survived the Citadel, Gale. Now we survive the war. He looked out at the dark, vast territory they had just won. He was no longer the quiet, overlooked student. He was the FDF commander, the prodigy who fought for the people, and the only man capable of ending this war not with brute strength, but with tactical intelligence. He was the better man. The kinetic dawn rose over the Mojave, painting the contested land in the fierce red and orange of a battle just begun.